Hey guys, today we are going to be talking about the phlegmatic in relationships. This is the final episode that we are going to be talking about the temperaments in relationship.
Yeah, part 4 of a 4-part series. And so if you are phlegmatic, this is going to help you. Or if you are in relationship with somebody that is phlegmatic, this is really going to help you to show up and be truly loving. So stick around.
Yep.
See you in there.
Hey
Welcome
guys.
back. Hey.
Oh, look at that. All right.
Stepping on my welcome.
Yes, that's
I'll
okay.
allow it. You'll allow it because you're the phlegmatic.
Yes.
We
I know.
learned that.
Yeah. I took the test again. I thought from the very beginning of the series, I totally thought I was sanguine choleric because every test I ever took, that's what happened. Well, I guess it might be like depending on the day.
Sure. There's an
Because
element of
my
that.
secondary was a very close, almost a tie for phlegmatic and choleric, which I'm not shocked by at all. I have a lot of phlegmatic influences in my life.
I know you bit your tongue when you said I have 2 phlegmatic parents because we learned that is not the case either when your father took the
Yes.
test.
Yeah, my dad
think-
shocked me.
Yeah, I think we can say definitively though that Joni was phlegmatic.
Yes, my mom was 100% phlegmatic. If somebody can be that way, so a lot of phlegmatic influences in my life, and I mean, as I'm reading these descriptions, I'm like, oh yeah, that is me.
I can identify with a lot of
Actually,
those.
there's a lot of those. So here we are. I can enter into this role, and we can talk about it. And
You can own it.
I
now
can
we
own it.
Yeah, now we have dominant and secondaries that cover the full gamut of temperaments. So we can speak from experience now.
You know, it was interesting when I was taking the test, a lot of the questions, because I wrote the test too, so I probably need to take another test. But a lot of the questions that were about choleric, that I knew were choleric questions, my answer was, it depends. It depends on the situation. It wasn't like always, oh, for sure, this is me all the time. But it was like, it kind of depends. Like if I'm working, if it like has to do with work and coaching and leading people, you're like, yeah, definitely. But not all the time across the board. So I would say phlegmatic, I'm way more phlegmatic when it comes to relationships.
Interesting.
For sure.
Interesting. So it's circumstantial.
A little
And
bit,
that's
yeah.
appropriate because we're talking about the phlegmatic in relationships today. This is part 4 of a 4-part series that we're going through, exploring how the different temperaments show up in relationship, where they get in the way or where they have kind of a natural disposition that inclines them to a relationship. And again, looking back on how we're talking about whether something leans away or leans towards a relationship, we're asking the question, is this particular habit of thinking, feeling, and acting found in this temperament?
Yeah.
Is it allowing us to see the other person or create space for the other person to feel comfortable, vulnerable enough to allow themselves to be seen, right? Or is it, or even myself, is it something that is a disposition inclining me to allow myself to be seen? Or is it something where I feel like I got to kind of build up some walls or get defensive or go on the offensive, something like that, which actually gets in the way of that seeing one another. Remember that beatific vision that we're created for? It's a seeing God face to face. Here, seeing our human counterparts here, our loved ones, is an important part of being in relationship with them and not some sort of figment of our imagination of who they are or who we think they should be.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about the phlegmatic temperament is like the sanguine temperament, it is very people-driven, people-oriented. Sanguine is external with their expression and their response and duration and intensity to stimuli, but they're external with people, and phlegmatics are more interior.
Okay.
And so they love relationships. They, I feel like, are motivated by relationships, or motivated certainly by harmony in relationships. But they just are more interior in the way that they respond, if they respond at all. So
Yeah.
let's get right into it.
Yeah, and we've been having like a lot of good feedback from these things. So these podcast series on the temperament. So folks, allow us to like kind of climb the charts here a little bit. If you're liking what you're hearing, please like, subscribe what we're doing on our YouTube channel, or write a review.
Share it with
on our
people,
podcast.
too.
Yeah, please share with your friends and family. Write those reviews. Give us the 5 stars to help us get in front of more people. Thank you. All right, Aaron, let's do it.
All right. So what are the constructive qualities for the phlegmatic? I already said that phlegmatics are relationship oriented. If we were to relate it to a domain in the strengths, Gallup Strengths Finders, it would probably be the personal
relationship. Yeah, the relationship domain.
Yep. Their constructive qualities are they're very loyal. They're even keeled. I want you guys to think of friends like this, or people in your life like this.
Or yourself.
Yeah. Yes. They are not dramatic at all. They probably will flee at the sign of drama. I can relate to that, I think, big time. They are steadfast. They are thoughtful. They are peaceful. They are empathetic. They are harmony oriented, and they are kind. And they're not pretending to be kind. They are just kind people. I would also say they're easygoing in that, like, they just kind of go with the flow in that sense.
Yeah, I think of adaptability as one of those signature themes, and it's a relationship theme. It's literally going with the flow, and making it very easygoing in relationships.
Yeah. So some of the deconstructive qualities, and like we said, the deconstructive ones are the ones that maybe are excessive or in deficit.
Yeah,
so it's
even
like
the good,
imbalanced.
Even the good qualities that you just shared, they have. There's a way of showing up in excess or deficit. And say, for example, being non-dramatic. Okay, well, maybe there's a time where an appropriate emotional response, like an emotional response, is appropriate, right?
Right.
Not to the point where it's like you're seeing red and you're losing your reason, but like there may be a time to actually experience a little bit more depth of emotion, or being steadfast. Maybe there's time where being steadfast isn't really subject to reason. For example, like when you're steadfast to somebody that is in error, right? And they're taking you with them down a place of error. Arguably, that's not the time to put loyalty at the top of your list of attributes. Or
No, I think of a friend of mine whose husband is certainly phlegmatic, and I remember her saying, like, if he was any more laid back, he'd be dead. And you can imagine, though, like that being frustrating for maybe a spouse who is very active. I mean, like, hey,
oh gosh,
like, why don't you
so
get up and
often
do
the
something?
conflicts we hear
right.
in those situations where it's just like the activators are like go 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 go, and then the spouses are kind of like, all right, I'm going just as fast as I'd like to go right now.
Right, exactly. Okay, so some of the deconstructive qualities are they can seem detached or uninvolved. And this is just kind of from their like stoic nature. They just don't like, it's not that they don't feel emotions. They just don't express them very well, or they're not drawn. It's just not a tendency of theirs.
Well, can I ask a clarifying question? You say they don't, it's not that they don't feel emotions. They don't express them. Is it like, I think of just the distinctions between the temperaments, and one of those things is the intensity of the response to a stimulus. So are you saying it's just not a very intense response? They still have a response. It's just not
exactly
intense. So they feel the emotions, but just kind of on a lower intensity level.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Yep. And it takes them a while to like feel an emotion too.
Yeah.
So like if we were talking about the response of everything, it's like they are slow. It's not quick, not like the choleric and the sanguine. They're slow to react, very low intensity. And then like if there's any duration at all, like it's very short. So they're also very forgiving people, which is great. There's the second quality to kind of look out for is they are stubborn, believe it or not.
That, I mean, and of course I keep thinking of Joni, right? And I keep thinking of my mother-in-law. And it's just like stubborn. It's just like, I don't think it's a word. And maybe she's just where I'm looking at a mature phlegmatic here, but
she was.
Tell me a little bit more.
Well, stubborn in that, like, I think this is kind of a top layer thing that's going on. And I can get into this more when we talk about the final thing that gets in the way.
Okay.
Because I think the stubbornness is more of like a response to that. Like they can be very stubborn in their procrastination.
Okay, in the sense of not wanting to move
Yes.
from where they are. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I can get that.
Yeah.
Right. Bunch of mules.
Yes, exactly.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. Drinking seltzers during podcasts.
I love this flavor too, by the way.
Drinking burps in a podcast.
Yes, it's orange vanilla. I know, like, please, if I do burp, I apologize.
We
ahead of
turn
time.
from the microphone.
Okay. People pleasing. This is the final thing. This is a habit of phlegmatics. Now, is people pleasing a bad thing? No.
Not in and of itself.
It's
got a
probably
negative connotation to it.
I would say, even for the other temperaments, people pleasing would be a wonderful thing for choleric to learn how to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So if we're looking at it defined as like other people being delighted with you,
Yes.
like who doesn't want that? Like as opposed to like other people not being pleased with you,
Right.
but desiring to be in relationship with you. It's just like we don't necessarily desire to be in relationship with people that are not pleasing to us.
Right. Exactly.
Doesn't
So-
mean we can't love them, but we may not necessarily want to be very close to them.
Yes. But for the phlegmatic,
Turn away for the burp. Thank you.
excuse me. For the phlegmatic, that was very kind of me. Normally it is not that silent. But for the phlegmatic, it can become a little bit more complicated. It's kind of like that excessive deficit. I would certainly say for a phlegmatic person, this habit of people pleasing becomes an excessive thing.
Okay.
Because of their motivation to keep harmony.
Okay. Yes, and I can see here as well where this people pleasing. Again, we're going back to the things that can be obstacles to relationship, and specifically, we're looking at, does this allow you to see the other and see yourself? Right. Oftentimes, when we people please, who are we failing to see? We're often failing to see ourselves and our own desires. We can be very dismissive of our desires, and so what happens? We don't have an authentic person that really shows up
Yes.
here.
Which gets me into the first thing. Okay, so
Okay.
here, this is how it becomes excessive to the phlegmatic. And certainly we are not saying stop people pleasing. I just want you, if you are a phlegmatic out there and you're hearing this, I just want you to be very clear on why this is a habit of yours. And then also freely choose if you want to continue it. This is what I want you to think about. I don't want you to be like, it's awful all the time or whatever. Like, I think it's a beautiful thing that you are harmony focused. I think it's a beautiful thing that you want to create peace. I think you become like an incredible diplomat and negotiator and just between person. I think phlegmatics make incredible coaches because they can be very empathetic, but also
harmonious.
They can look at things in different ways in non over emotional way. So
Yeah, I think of the developer strength and Clifton's strengths. It was like just wants to come alongside somebody and be there with them while they are growing in their fullest potential, right? And they're in it for the long haul. They are very steadfast, like you said. And I can see where you're saying, okay, yeah, these things could, like what I hear you saying, let's get to the motivation behind the people pleasing. And
Yes.
I know we're going to get into talking specifically about those motivations, where it can go right and where it can go wrong. But yeah, getting down to the motivation,
Yeah.
when it's good, it's a great thing, people pleasing.
and we have a whole podcast on people pleasing, so we recommend that. I
Yeah.
don't know what number it is. I know it's like sometime.
We did it. I
Yes.
promise.
Sometime maybe around the 30s. I don't know. But okay, so go check out our podcast, but I'm going to break this down. Why can people pleasing become an excessive habit for the phlegmatic? Number one, you were getting into this. It can create hollow relationships. What does that mean? Well, if you have a person who has a relationship with you and you happen to be like people pleasing them, it isn't really like that person is not really having a relationship with you. They're having a relationship with this like shell of a person
A facade, yes.
that is just like, okay, yes, whatever you like, right? And
I always think of Brittany.
yes, I know.
Somebody attacked her in a bar. Another girl attacked her in a bar, and she goes, I like everything you like.
It's such a
That
phlegmatic
was the immediate
response.
response.
Yes, right. To create harmony and peace. I like everything you like. That is in a very extreme way a phlegmatic. So you guys can all think about that. But if you think about it, if you like are like, yes, I like everything you like, and you don't really ever express what you really like, or maybe you don't even know what you really like you're doing everyone a disservice. Nobody, I mean, think about it. Do you want to be friends with somebody who's always like saying yes? I mean, maybe I don't. I'm like, I don't feel like that's a real relationship.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that it does is it kills complementarity.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we consider like, what do we need in order to be complementary towards one another? I not in compliment as like paying compliments to other people, but actually like enhancing somebody else's experience of life. I think back to John Paul II's theology of the body. He talks about.
I think was a phlegmatic, actually.
Is he?
St. John Paul II.
Oh, that's pretty cool. But like, I could see that certainly. But he talks about this spousal analogy. And even in his personalism, one of the components of his personalism is that like we are created to be gift to one another. Well, what that means is there needs to be some differentiation between us and the other person. And even those things that we hide that we think are going to cause, problems for other people, like our areas of poverty, our areas of insecurity, our areas of weakness, really what that does is it actually gives people an opportunity to show up as a gift, right? Maybe you're insecure in a certain area and somebody is secure in that area. And you can make a gift of your insecurity to that person to really show up and really minister to you, and in so doing, you have a communion that's based on like this mutual giving and receiving of one another. It's very authentic, and by its very nature, John Paul II says it is fruitful. Right? There is good fruits that come forth from this, but I think a lot of the time we get a little bit nervous about rocking the apple cart in a relationship, and so what do? We try not to put any sort of demands on the other in the relationship, even if these demands are by God's design, possibly by God's design, to actually draw them into a greater virtue themselves.
Yeah, which brings us into another thing that you just said. It was a perfect segue into
Thank
that
you.
because the act of people pleasing, if it's coming from a place of fear and not freedom.
Yes.
Fear of rocking the boat. So guys, when fear is driving something and it's unintentionally driving something, like you might be like, oh, I'm afraid of that thing, I'm going to go after it anyway. Totally different. But like if fear is unintentionally driving something, you are handing over your power to that something or somebody else. So like it is such a clean line to a lack of freedom there. So if you happen to be not wanting to rock the boat or rock the apple cart from a place of fear, that might be another indicator that you're people pleasing and maybe just feel like this lack of freedom to say no. Which, I mean, if you think about it, who wants to have a relationship with somebody who is afraid and doesn't want to rock the boat and lacks freedom, and most of their actions are out of obligation? Like, I don't want to be in a relationship.
Well,
with
I could
somebody
answer
like
that question. A narcissist.
Oh yeah,
would love
true.
to have that. So like, there's somebody that there are people that prefer to surround themselves with yes people, but they aren't growth minded people.
Yeah,
and they aren't humble people, and these are people that are often very unaware themselves, and like they're not really looking for a real relationship, or they don't, and I don't want to be too judgmental on them because like, gosh, we can all have some elements of this, and narcissism even in our own lives. I think when I say narcissist, it really needs a qualifier then, but I look at, again, what we miss out on when we operate from that place of fear, which always denies love, like contracepts love in that. The fruits are just never going to be good. But we're probably seeking to have a real relationship, and the motivation is by going along to get along, even if it's out of fear.
yeah,
It's going to preserve the relationship. But I think we have to define what a relationship is.
yes.
And
Which actually, there's I am going to talk about that but let's move on.
Great.
Okay.
Love it.
People pleasing can be selfishness in disguise. All right. If you think about it, you're phlegmatic. You're motivated by peace and harmony. And if
Consistency.
I go along to get along, and like that is kind of a form of manipulation. Saying like, all I want is peace and harmony, not necessarily the greatest good for everyone. Because guys, I think we can all agree that there have been times of tension that brought out greater fruits for people at the end of it.
Oh yeah.
You
Without
know?
a doubt.
So like really, if you're just kind of like, if that's your only goal is this peace and harmony, maybe we need to look at peace and harmony from a different angle here. And it can be this like not speaking up, not wanting to rock the boat, a very subtle and silent form of manipulation to get what you want.
Yeah, and I
it.
think it takes the relationship and it makes it an end in and of itself.
Yes.
Like rather than relationship being something that is a means to an experience, you know, a foretaste of the beatific vision, which is like a proper understanding of relationship. Rather, it just becomes something that we have to claim and hold on to, and it's in a lot of ways here. It's a created good, right? That
Yes.
we're making an idol out of it, and not seeing it as a signpost towards a beatitude, but we're making it our beatitude, and it's going to fall way short.
Yep. And another reason why you may be people pleasing is because you think you have one of two choices, and that is, I'm going to do what I want, which is very uncomfortable for the phlegmatic, because it often leads to guilt. And kind of like, so then they would have to work through that. And then the second thing, so they have two choices. They give themselves two choices. They say, either I do what I want and I feel guilty, or I'm going to do what other people want because that's comfortable and familiar for me. But also that may lead to resentment and also like feeling out of control with your life, like your life is happening at you. And you can't really say no. And there's like a lack of freedom there. So like, I'm here to tell you there is another choice. And we are going to get into that.
Yeah, and I hear you say lack of freedom also, Aaron, and that's like, again, that's another one of those questions where John Paul II deviated from some of his predecessors. It's like freedom is not an end in and of itself as well. Freedom is a means to an end, and it's not a means to just determine your own like definition of what good is, right?
Yes.
Autonomy. That's really where we have this very individualistic culture right now, that they see freedom as a means to get whatever they determine is their greatest good, right? It's a very self-referencing kind of argument that ultimately, an idea that ultimately leads to the opposite of relationship, individualism, right? Where we no longer need one another. It kills complementarity. Rather, John Paul II is like, no, freedom is like a means to an end. It's freedom to choose to discover what our greatest good actually is, not to create it for ourselves, but to discover what it is. If you get a bunch of people that are creating their greatest good, at some point, my greatest good is going to conflict with Aaron's greatest good or somebody else's greatest good. And at that point, like
Right.
who's wins at that point?
If
This
it
is
is
exactly
all
the culture that
subjective.
we're living in
Yeah.
at this point.
If it's all subjective, right? Exactly. Like
It's all subjective,
who
yeah.
chooses, who gets the win
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we just miss the mark, and we don't actually enter into relationship. So I think that's another important lesson for the phlegmatic, is that this freedom to choose is not like the end in and of itself, or even the relationship is not the end in and of itself, but it's really a means, it's a gift that God gives to us to point us towards
For the greatest
beatitude
good.
ultimately.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that relationship does have an objective value to it. It's not just a subjective interpretation what beatitude is. There's an objectivity to it as well.
Yes. Sorry. We have a lot to cover.
Okay,
So
let's go. The strong head nod means shut up.
let's move on. Okay. So what to do, how to recognize if you're people pleasing, and what to do. How do we disrupt this cycle? We're not going to give you all the answers here. This is why you need to come join us in the academy and get coached on this and actually have somebody else look at your mind for you.
yo. Come on.
But I'm going to give you a little bit of something. So if you are phlegmatic and you're like, or if you're not phlegmatic and you find yourself people pleasing, this will help too. But for all you phlegmatics out there, you have to, number one, decide for yourself, if you actually want to stop people pleasing. It's probably serving something for you. So maybe identify like, what is this protecting? Why do I want to continue on with it? But I want you to understand what your why is to stop doing it, because it will require effort. And I know that word is kind of a bad word to our phlegmatics out there. They love ease and comfort and not rocking the boat. So effort. And so you have to be convicted of your reason to stop people pleasing. Mm-hmm. If you do want to stop, or just try it out, try answering your why. What is your reason for stopping? I already said that. Mm-hmm. And please don't let this why be to please other people. Right? Which is just kind of like a circular thing. It'd be really funny if that was the reason. But, So we want to be convicted on our why. Like some of the examples is if you can't think of your why, I'm going to give you some examples. I want to stop people pleasing because I want people to have a real relationship with me, not a fake relationship. I think that's a great convicting why. Like, I want to have real relationships with people. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to love someone and still say no in freedom. That's like another great reason why to want to stop people pleasing. Mm-hmm. Okay. Keep in mind, you can people please anyone, your kids, you can people please your spouse, you can people please your friends, your boss, all these people, but like you want to be able to say no. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what's the other thing that we do? We want to identify your driving motivation to people please. So first think of a recent example of a time where you did actually people please. Mm-hmm. Like, when was the last time that you did this? Maybe it was your mother. Maybe it was your spouse. Maybe it was your child. And then I want you to answer these questions. So have that circumstance in mind. Like, okay, what happened? Maybe it was like your strong-willed child asking to go to a friend's house. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll just use that example. And you wanted to say no. You wanted them to stay home. You knew it was better for them, all these things, but you said yes. Okay. So here's the story. What I want to ask you, and I want you to answer these questions. What did I think was at stake if I did not people please? So in this case, what did I think was at stake if I did not say yes? What is at stake here? Mm-hmm. So maybe it's like, what's at stake is my relationship with my daughter. She's not going to like me. She's going to be upset. Mm-hmm. Okay, for example. Another way to ask this, so if that first question doesn't really fit you, here's another way to ask it. What did I assume would be harmed if I didn't people please? Now we're trying to identify the reason why. Why are you doing this habit? Why is, like, what would be harmed, Matt? What do you think would be harmed in this person's mind?
I mean, what could be harmed is their own emotional life. They might feel bad if all of a sudden so there's avoiding some sort of feeling of guilt that's here, or maybe there's a harmful thought that like I'm not a very good parent, or I don't know what I'm doing. Just they do it because they don't want to find evidence to support perhaps a toxic thought that's already there in their mind. They're trying to create evidence outside of themselves to give themselves permission no longer to think this toxic thought that really is the what's causing the icky feelings that they're dealing with and trying to avoid.
Yeah. I think that's another good question. Like, what am I trying to avoid by people pleasing?
Yeah, and I love this. I love the question of just motivation behind this. Is again, I always try to draw on the JP2 personalism references. I've been really going on a kick with that recently. But his whole personalistic norm that he talks about is that, yes, like we can never use a person as a means to an end, but we have to approach whenever a person is the object of our action, right? And what I mean by that is like when you're a boss and you're trying to motivate an employee, or your kid or parent, you're trying to motivate your kid to brush their teeth. Whenever a person is is an object of your actions, we always have to approach with this reverence, knowing that they have their own personal desires. They have their own personal ends in mind. What he's talking about is everybody has this motivation. Everybody is pursuing what they believe to be in keeping with their greatest good. Mm-hmm. And so just disregarding that primary motivation behind it is never going to be something that draws you into relationship.
Yeah.
Even disregarding or not considering your own personal ends is not going to be something that it's going to be an obstacle to entering into true relationship with somebody.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, because when you find the answers to these questions, what's at stake here, whatever, you might be tempted to judge yourself for wanting these things. But I think really just kind of coming into that place of acceptance and being like, okay, I want this. This is something that's important to me. You could also ask, what else is important to me? This isn't the only important thing. You know, maybe my kid's health, maybe they're overrun, maybe they're doing too many things. That could be important to me too. And so kind of like expanding it versus being like, this is going to create tension and disharmony and not being the only important thing. What else is important?
Yeah, it's a real benefit to the phlegmatic to get in touch with their desires.
Yes. And I will cover that too. Yes.
I didn't read ahead.
Yes.
Continue, my love.
So, and then after you do this, after you kind of find out, okay, what am I protecting? What's at stake here? What am I trying to avoid? What am I assuming will be harmed? Then what I want you to do is look at the other side of it. Just expand your view of this. I like my coach always says, give it equal airtime. So like, let's look at it from the other side. So a great question you could ask is, what is actually at stake if I continue to people please? So we can go back to this example. What would be at stake if I said yes to my daughter? Well, possibly her health, possibly her listening to me when I do say no, like that relationship going back and forth, that respect.
Yeah, or even like building a secure attachment with my daughter, like like my daughter seeing me as somebody that's really looking out for her safety, and that perception, or even like perhaps my daughter's understanding of boundaries.
Yes, yeah. My daughter's relational health, right? Because we are the parents are the ones that teach them this.
Yes.
And so like, if my daughter never hears the word no, like how is that going to impact her relationships in the future? That could be harmful to a relationship. So that moves us on to the next one. What could be harmed if I continue to people please? If I continue to say yes to my daughter? How could continuing to people please create more disharmony in my life? Think about that. Because I think we people please to create harmony. But what if it actually creates more disharmony in my life? Do I have any evidence of that? Maybe it's just internal disharmony. Maybe it's just being like, I don't want to say yes, but I feel a lack of freedom to say yes or to say no. And so I'm creating my own disharmony like internally.
Yeah, lacking integrity there. Yep.
Yeah. And I also really like this. How is this behavior of people pleasing actually selfish?
Yeah.
And not about the other person?
As we're going through this and I'm kind of entering into the shoes of somebody that's phlegmatic and receiving this, you may even find yourself like starting to beat yourself up with this exercise.
Recoiling.
All right, like this exercise is not meant, this exercise is meant to be an exercise of mercy.
Yes.
Right? We're suspending judgment at this point, and we're just kind of taking first a quantitative view of our actions and a qualitative view of the actions. It's not saying that okay, I didn't set good boundaries in my daughter, and so therefore she's going to not be able to enter into a relationship because, in the future it's going to like damage her marriage down the line. Okay, that's we're going to extreme, we're catastrophizing there. We invite you not to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not the invitation here, but rather it is to allow perhaps for a little bit of that discomfort that can kind of move us or help us to move along here. Because whenever we're moving from a place of vice to a place of virtue, like on that path of perfection, there's kind of like an equal carrot and stick associated with that movement. It's learning to desire the good that's proposed in that life of virtue, while at the same time learning to despise the vice and the effects and the fruits of that vice, the vicious living, as well, so that we're equally running to and running from virtue, running from vice.
Yeah. And how can tension actually be a good thing?
Yes.
Too. I think that's a really good, because I think some people, phlegmatics, will experience tension and be like, oh, yeah, I don't like that right away. But how can tension be a good thing? Do you have any evidence of that in your past? Like tension, like let's say you had a baby. Maybe you've had many babies if you're a woman out there, which these women are the people who have babies, by the way.
Fact check it.
It's just fact. But like if you have had babies, like there was tension in labor, in delivery. There was tension, and that was actually a good thing. That baby needed to leave your body. So like even just, I mean, that sounds like such a an extreme example, but like how
it works. Yeah.
When have there been times where tension was a good thing? Okay. So, how to love and motivate your phlegmatic loved one?
Pivoting, right? So we've just been doing a lot of talk on
if you happen
if
to
you
be
are phlegmatic. Now it's like, now I am in a relationship with somebody that is phlegmatic. How do I tap into some of their natural motivations to to leverage some of those areas of strength, and maybe do a little jujitsu on the areas of in those areas of weakness where we're working with the motivations that they already have.
Yeah.
To enter into a deeper relationship with them. I love
Nice.
this. Let's do it, Aaron.
All right. Well, you help them discover their own motivation. That I mean, and really what they want and what they desire, and what convicts them. And I think our unique call to sanctity is something that's really helpful for phlegmatics.
Yeah, you can get that at metanoia.catholic. It's on our Instagram and our link tree. Just click Unique Call to Sanctity. It's a workshop that we have in the Academy that we've made free and available to everybody.
Yes.
Go and get it. Go and get it. You can go over our Instagram link tree.
Yeah. And if
follow
you
us,
are
too.
phlegmatic too, answering those questions, I do give you one rule. You are not allowed to answer I don't know to those questions.
Yes. And also be careful when you're answering that question. You're answering the question, what do you want, not what should I want?
Ooh, yeah. All right, there you go. All right, so like if you are somebody who loves a phlegmatic, like just help them discover that. Ask them questions like, hey, what do you want? What's your favorite flower? What is your, what are these things that you actually like? And actually have them answer. Just keep asking them. Like get curious about them.
Yeah, we got to give them that 101 questions to ask. I think
that's helpful.
That might be part of the inside the Academy, but that's a fun little
Yeah. I
way
remember
of asking some open-ended desire, discovery questions. Yeah.
So I remember coaching somebody who was sanguine phlegmatic. Okay, that was their
temperament.
Yep. Thank you. Combo. Primary sanguine, secondary phlegmatic, and I remember being like taking them through the unique call to sanctity, taking them through these like uncovering questions and them having like a really hard time with it and actually like getting emotional about it. The emotional side was probably the sanguine side, but like really being like, I'm just so sad that nobody ever asked me these things and I'm just finding this out now. Like there was just kind of this grieving, like I've just been a yes person my whole life. And like we said, like, of course we want you to be agreeable and say yes to people if it's a free will choice of yours. But this being kind of a really helpful and like life-changing exercise. So I just want to lean into that a little
I think
bit
as somebody that's choleric, cholerics have that extroverted personality that can take up a lot of space in the room. And I think about like just what a gift it could be for even a choleric to a phlegmatic to step back and rather than take up space, to create a space, hold a space for that phlegmatic to kind of step into and explore. And I think some of these open-ended questions are a very practical way that a choleric or even a sanguine that again, takes up a lot of space, that big extroverted personality, can really be a gift to a phlegmatic.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Help them grow in conviction. I think a lot of people want to go to the place of like help them grow in desire.
And grow in doing and taking action.
Yeah, but that's kind of, I mean, but I will say phlegmatics, once they get started,
they're steadfast.
They are assiduous. They are steadfast. They are diligent, which is great. But like they're hard. The hard thing is getting them started.
Yeah, good word
And
there,
so,
assiduous.
No, thank you.
I don't even know what it means.
It means diligent.
Oh, very good.
Basically.
Word nerd.
So help them grow in conviction. I like conviction. Conviction, it implies desire, but also like this real belief in something. And I think a way of helping them grow in conviction is doing the 7 whys exercise. Yeah. So if you're taking them through the unique call to sanctity, we've figured out, okay, what are some of the things that I like? Here's some of my gifts. Here's like a mission that I feel drawn towards. Then what you would want to do is ask them why.
Yeah.
Why?
Be a 4-year-old.
Yep.
Why?
There you go. And we talked about the 7 whys exercise in the Sanguine podcast.
Who's coined that?
I don't know. I think it started with some Toyota or something or
well, yeah,
Honda.
that was the
It's like a salesperson.
It was the 7 whys in lean manufacturing. It might have been 5 whys, right, to get to the actual root of the problem.
Yes.
Right.
But you want to ask why. Why is that important to you? Why is that important to you?
Yeah,
why is that?
It's like going 7 layers deep, and like think of a 7-layer dip. I always think of a 7-layer nacho dip with that. But also like just know this: sometimes you arrive there in 4 whys. All right, it's just like not a rule that it takes 7, but like the 7 whys is like continue asking why, even though you think you've arrived there, and send your brain on a mission to see if there's a deeper motivation behind it.
Yeah. Okay. Encourage them to rethink the word peace and harmony. I think it's just kind of like put some space between it because it is kind of like their ultimate end. It is their motivation. So use that fuel, that energy towards creating peace because guys, they do have motivation. They love creating peace actually. That is a motivation. So we can use that fuel, but we can help them like rethink this word peace. If I like this question, if peace weren't an answer that you could provide to me, what else could be the greatest good for everyone?
I love that. Greatest good for everyone.
Yes.
The common good, you guys, is actually what I was reading this book by Father Walter Shue, who wrote, Reflection on John Paul II's personalism, how it's the foundation for his theology of the body. And he says, when 2 people pursue a common good together willingly, it actually becomes the foundation for a loving relationship. And if you think of like, okay, love is willing the good of the other. Like when Aaron and I both decide on a common good that together we are going to will in our own freedom, that actually draws us into relationship. So think of like right now, like our marriage is a good that we are collectively willing together. But it's also a good that we are coming to understand what that is. And so in the experience of marriage, in relationship, we're also coming to know a deeper knowledge of what the good of marriage is, how good marriage is. And sometimes we have kind of a different conception in our mind.
Yeah.
And because we have a different conception of the greatest good, that's what leads to a little bit of tension, a little bit of argument. But resolving those arguments, what we're discovering, this is even the workshop that we have this month in the Academy, is about coming to understand the primary motivation of each person in that relationship, because that's the good that they conceive in their mind. And if it's off a little bit, maybe you guys can just be transparent with what you desire. This is, again, how do we love the phlegmatic that may be burying their own personal desire, their own personal ends that John Paul II talks about, creating a space to really understand what it is, but also being very clear on what is motivating you. That is a great gift to the phlegmatic because they're making a determination of what that good is, and they want to serve it naturally. They want to pursue it with you, but be very clear on what is motivating you and why you're doing what you're doing. I think that is something that would be such a gift to the phlegmatic.
Yeah.
To not have to figure it out without you telling them.
Yes. And how pursuing the greatest good for everyone actually ultimately is the most harmonious thing. So like it really is, because we all, like, if we all pursued the greatest good for everybody else, ourselves included, right? Like everybody's greatest good for all of us, we'd all be in heaven, which I would say is probably one of the most harmonious places
Pretty rad.
in the world.
Yeah.
So, or outside of the world, really. Okay. So, and I also like this question. Could something be unpeaceful, but also the greatest good?
Huh. Tell me more.
On this side of heaven. Okay. I know we were just in heaven. We were hanging out in there with our minds. So we do know that's very harmonious in heaven. I mean, I don't know how I know
Eyes
that,
not
but
seen,
I'm just
ears
guessing.
not heard, nor is it entered the heart of
But
man.
could something be unpeaceful? So this is just still challenging that peace, that definition that this phlegmatic has for the word peace. Could something be unpeaceful but also good? So like I was saying, like what we were saying, like when we are both working towards the greatest good, guess what? Because we are both fallen humans, we are going to disagree.
Yeah.
And that might be unpeaceful for a moment.
We may be lacking in the tranquility of order.
Yes.
Right? That definition of peace. Who's that, Augustine or Aquinas?
It's Augustine.
Augustine. Yeah, that peace being the tranquility of order.
Yeah. So we're lacking that for a moment, but we can get to the other side of that. So I think that's a really good question to ask. Okay. Encourage them to substitute words like peace and harmony with integrity.
Wed Ned.
Well, because I think integrity, it does imply peace, or it definitely implies harmony, in that it's integrated, right? Like it's ordered in that way.
Yep.
But it also implies honesty.
Okay.
Now, and I think, because honestia actually, I think is like the Latin word for integrity, believe it or not. Honestia. So it means that there's an order, but also there's an honesty here.
Yeah, a sincerity that is there.
And that's something that I would like for all of the phlegmatics to pray for, that sincerity, that honesty, that fortitude to share what is honestly going on inside of you with others.
Yeah.
Do not nag them to get started. It will work backwards. They will enter into that stubborn mule phase, and they will continue to procrastinate. Don't nag them.
I was not referencing you.
Yes, Matt, don't nag them. Also, don't criticize them or take over for them.
They'll let you.
100%. I remember I was going back and forth with somebody, and it was a gift that we gave to them. And it was like, oh, like it was just something that we gave to them. And they went back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And I'm like, I'm not going to choose for you, right? Like, I'm going to let you choose this because I do not want to drag anyone along. I do not want to force this upon anyone. I'm going to let you choose. That's very painful for the phlegmatic to let them choose that.
But that was the real gift.
That was the gift.
Forcing them to grow.
That's right. Notice the
With their
areas that they have taken action in the past and get curious.
Okay.
So like for some reason you completed this. What got you started? What were you thinking that got you started? What convicted you? And then see if that applies to what they're having a hard time getting started with now.
Yeah.
Not always, but like it's not a science, but like you could get curious about why they've done things in the past. Also, focus on their past successes. Like you could review them with them and be like, hey, you did this that one time and that was awesome. And you were diligent through it. And like, so what motivated you then? Just get curious about them. They probably are not asking themselves these questions. So be that person to ask them. I love this one. And this is going to be a plug for you, my love. If you are in the academy this month, we are going to be going through strengths. We are going to like have a focus group for strengths. Matt's going to be leading it. Matt is our strengths coach.
Yeah, and I'm going to be leaning quite a bit on some other people.
Other
It's like
other
compatriots,
experts.
comrades. That's a
Experts.
little bit
So acknowledge the
Roasty.
personal and unique strengths. I
Okay.
think this is really helpful for phlegmatics because they get discouraged really easily. They don't really think about themselves a lot. You know, they are always kind of, so like just being like, hey, did you know that you're really, really good in this? So it's just like helps them with the confident boost.
Yeah, and when you come to recognize areas that you're good in, I think that's something that actually helps you to understand your own desires.
Yes.
And also
Explain your
like
desires.
God's plan for your life, right?
Yes.
God doesn't set us on a trajectory with our gifts and our natural abilities so that we would leave all those to the side and go down a path where we're just
And go try to be a choleric.
absolutely incompetent, right? That would be quite disordered.
Yeah. Yeah. It gives them meaning and conviction, I think. It helps with that.
Well, yeah, that was even part of the conversation that's been going back and forth. We got like this, we've got a whole Strengths Nerds Voxer channel, and there's a couple of us that are on there, and it's just, we've been going back and forth, and one of the comments that we had recently was just somebody saying, like, I felt like there was a lot of areas that I just dismissed, a lot of abilities or habits in my life that I dismissed as no good, but rather now I can see how they can really be a place of contribution and bring value to people. And again, what do we hear in that? We hear this language of gift, this desire to be a sincere gift to others so that we can enter into communion with others and really image God and his Trinitarianness all the more perfectly.
Yeah. So if you're phlegmatic and you have not taken that test yet, and if you have not joined our academy, come join it.
Yeah,
Because
the
we're going
link
to be
is in
doing
the
it from a
academy to it.
Catholic standpoint, which I'm like so pumped about.
Yeah.
And this has not been done before.
It is not, no.
Yeah. So here we go.
Yeah,
Another thing that
I'm aware of.
what we would want the phlegmatic to do is promote honesty. What I mean by that is changing some words. Here we go. Word nerd. We need like one of those little
Word nerd.
yeah. Little audio like word nerd. With like a little emoji with
With like a little flash of like our faces like on,
yeah.
you know,
That
like
could be it.
zooming in and out, almost like old Batman
Or a picture
style.
when I was a nerd for Halloween.
We've got
like
it.
this.
We'll work on it.
Okay. If you're listening to the podcast, you have to go watch the video because we're making funny faces. Okay. So by changing words from like, I can't do that right now to, or I can't seem to stop procrastinating to, I won't do that right now. Or I'm choosing to not do that right now. Like that is very empowering for the phlegmatic. Just understanding what your will is there for and be honest with yourself. Because that is true. You are choosing not to do it.
Yeah, because when you say I can't, when you actually can, that is a lie.
Yeah.
It's not honest. You're out of integrity at that point.
Yeah.
And it also has a way of just kind of, you know, convincing yourself that it's actually true the more you think it, and then you start victimizing yourself with your own mindset.
And then take it to the next level. Like, I am choosing to not do this right now because I think it's going to be a lot more effort. Like, be honest with that too.
Yeah, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to get up early.
I think that's really powerful. I remember a friend of mine saying to me when I was like trying to find the right job for me. And I remember him saying, you know, Aaron, I think sometimes it's just as important to find out what we don't want to do than what we do want to do. And in this case, if you're having a hard time discovering your desires as a phlegmatic, maybe you start with the things you don't want to do and why you don't want to do them. And you got to start somewhere. So that will give you a lot of information too.
Thinking of the meme. I don't want to do the work today. I don't really want to do the work today. I don't want to do the work today. I don't want to do the work today.
I think we have the phlegmatic theme song.
What's that?
So, okay. Also, another thing that phlegmatics like to do, and I think we can lean into the strength, is to find the easy route. Route. I don't know how to say that. But
Retro.
and what is that like? Let's say you're working on a project with them. Let's say that you're on a team or they're a child of yours. To get them excited about something or at least convicted about doing something is you could ask this question. Hey, phlegmatic loved one, how could we make this project easier? From your standpoint. Like, I would love to hear your feedback. How can we make this easier? Like, this is your brilliance. You love making things easier. How can we make this easier? Or do you see a better, more pragmatic way of overcoming this obstacle?
Yeah.
These are good questions to ask them.
It's like the question that I think the person that's high in achiever often needs to have proposed to them, because they just like, achievers love stuff to take effort. They love projects that require effort. And I remember, like, even my own, like, being this choleric and high achiever, actually creating this whole training exercise for my Marines one time. And I had this whole kind of convoluted way where, like, this matrix where people were going to be rotating from station to station. And I, like, was briefing these guys, and they just kind of went, a couple of sergeants was like, so you just want to rotate clockwise? And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. And they're like, can we brief this plan and not you? It's like, yeah, that's probably better.
They were probably phlegmatics.
They were just sergeants probably, but
Yeah.
And I was a little second lieutenant.
Well, they
That's what we
made it easier for
They
sure.
did. They
Yeah.
did. Well done.
2 final ones. Give them a structured environment. They do very well in structured environment. They do well when you encourage them and clearly define your expectations of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then have some positive accountability. Not like, hey, you told me you'd get this done, I'm holding you accountable, versus like, hey, great job not doing anything. I don't know. I don't really know how to do that positively.
Great job finishing that binge watch on Netflix.
Yeah. You know,
Great
it
job
takes a
popping
lot
that popcorn.
of effort to just sit there and watch it.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I don't know what that looks
Great
like,
job
but I don't have an
waking
example
up.
of that yet. And then finally, affirm them for their cooperation. When they do cooperate, affirm them for it and their good attitude and the achievements that they've done in the past.
I'm still on making up reasons to affirm somebody when there's no reason to. If there's no reason to affirm, like, don't like.
Yeah, don't make it up.
Don't. Yeah.
But like when you
pander
see
to
them
people.
cooperate, when you see them do things,
Mm-hmm.
when you see them make even the tiniest bit of effort, like Matt knows this
Focused
is like,
affirmation, it's called.
so my
Yes.
my lowest strength, my very last is discipline. Matt knows this is hard for me, and it really does mean a lot when he's like, listen, I know that this took double amount of effort or triple amount of effort, and I see what you did. Good job. I know it's small. It seems like a small thing, but it's really helpful. And it actually creates more motivation.
Oh, well, wonderful.
Yeah. So that's my phlegmatic side coming out. And like,
I really do appreciate the notes that you put together for these last 4 podcasts.
Yeah.
They were all structured the same way, so I knew what part we were at. And yeah, I really appreciated that.
thanks. All right.
I love you.
Love you too.
Cool. Hey, phlegmatics.
Thanks for loving me well.
Yeah. Working on it. Folks, thank you so much for being with us. Again, right now, this month in the Academy, we are focused on living our temperaments in relationship. But even if you're listening to this later, these workshops are always available to you. And not
And
only
coaches
are
always
coaches
available.
are available to you.
Yeah.
We recognize that this work is not like when we're doing self-reflection work, you need somebody from an objective standpoint looking to your mind with you and kind of reflecting back. And it's just somebody that's been trained to do it. So they're not just kind of like, oh yeah, that's such a sad story. And like, you should stay there. And I
Yes.
totally empathize. Like there's a place for friendships, but like a coach is going to look at your mind completely differently. And it really can help you move forward.
And we train them.
Yes.
We train these coaches. So if you guys are interested in, like, you're like, oh, I really love all this stuff. I would love to be able to help people in this way. I would highly recommend you check out our Catholic Coaching Foundations course.
Yeah, it's a self-paced course, but it's also a community along with it, and there's coaching that comes with it as well. So we didn't want to just have another self-paced course that was out there that was just like, okay, you buy it, and maybe you succeed with it, maybe you don't, but like we give you opportunities to actually engage with the community, with people that have gone through this as well, or going through it alongside you, or ask questions, or show up and get coached on a group coaching call that's exclusive for people in this coaching community, or even, you know, there's access to the academy that comes with it as well. So a lot of resources to help you to succeed, because again, like this type of work is not something that we're meant to do by ourselves, folks.
Where can they find out about Catholic Coaching
Well, they can
Foundation?
go to CatholicCoaching.com and where it says become a Catholic coach or get trained, coach training. That's what it is. Coach training, you'll find it in that drop down, Catholic Coaching Foundation. So you can also find it in our link tree on at our Instagram, metanoia.catholic.
Yeah.
learn a little bit
Yeah,
more.
go check
There's
it
a
out.
there's a free webinar that kind of you can watch and learn a little bit more, and even a virtual tour that we'll give you.
Yes.
Cool. All right.
Bye, guys.
Thanks
See you
for being
next
with
week.
us.